Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys, the brand that believes in strength, reliability, and innovation. Introducing their Neptune aluminum MIG wire with an impressive 40,000 pounds of tensile strength, taking your repairs to the next level. The Neptune MIG wire is specifically designed for welding aluminum sheets, extrusions, pipe, and castings. Perfect for both the amateur hobbyist and the professional maintenance welder. It's engineered to produce superior results with very minimal skill. That's right, minimal skill. It makes perfect welds accessible to everyone, revolutionizing the way we work with aluminum. For those of you that have been involved with the ship construction, truck bodies, or cargo tank creation, Neptune MIG should be your first choice. It brings durability and resilience to your work, ensuring that every project stands the test of time. But Rockmount's Neptune MIG isn't just for big industry. It's also perfect for adding a touch of aluminum magic to your home. Whether it's working on light fixtures, furniture, windows, or door frames, Neptune MIG empowers you to create, repair, and innovate, delivering professional results every time. And here's the kicker. It's particularly recommended in all types of structural aluminum fabrication where post-weld heat treatment isn't feasible. That's the beauty of Neptune MIG. It adapts to your needs, making every project a breeze. Check out Neptune MIG as well as all the other great products at rockmountwelding.com. And as an added bonus for listeners of the Arc Junkies podcast, you can get a free 1-pound tube of Tartan AAA when you spend $250 or more on Rockmount Products and use code word AJP at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather, makers of the original custom pipeliner welding hoods. Outlaw makes the coolest custom hoods in the industry. If you can dream it up, Outlaw can put it on a hood for you. Whether it's a personal logo, favorite sports team, military branch of service, or your company's logo. I've been dealing with Outlaw for the past several years and personally own several hoods and other custom pieces from them. If you have a design you want to bring to life, reach out to info@outlawleatherllc.com and they'll make it happen. They even do custom rod pouches and arm pads as well. And if you're a welding school, you can reach out to them and get educational pricing and get your school's logo put on your students' hoods. And you can rest assured knowing that each custom hood is handmade right here in the USA in Pasadena, Texas. In addition to their custom leather work, Outlaw carries a full line of awesomely designed hoods and other leather work on their website, outlawleather.com. And as a thank you for being a listener to the Arc Junkies podcast, you can save 15% on all in-stock handmade leather goods when you use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout. Hit them up today and stand out on the job site or in your shop with Outlaw Leather. Welcome back to the Arc Junkies podcast. Today is show number 283, and my guest is Nate Bowman. In this episode, Nate and I catch up on some of the cool things he's been doing since we last met at FabTech. We kind of both go all over the place a little bit since we both have ADD, but somehow we manage to keep the show in between the lines. I'm sure many of y'all can relate. Nate's been on the show several times, and it's always a blast chatting with him. Let's go ahead and get into it. Fire up your machines, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
Nate, welcome back to the Arc Junkies, man.
Hey, dude, thanks again for having me.
We were talking. I think you've got like the number one spot as far as featured guest on the podcast. Like you've been on the most amount of times.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I just have a lot of free time. Probably not. But
no, you don't, because it was hell trying to lock this episode in between both of our schedules lately.
Yeah, I just, like when Jimmy was on, and he set this thing up. I mean, I remember going on there just a bunch of times, and he'd call me up if somebody canceled, and you've done that a couple times too. He's like,
yeah, I had one. And I was going to call you the other night because I had Todd, the camera guy from Weld.com. I was going to have him on last week, and he canceled. I guess he woke up, he was sick, running a fever and shit. So he let me know like super early in the morning. I got sidetracked at work, and I was like, damn, what am I going to do? And I was like, I could call Nate, and I was like, well, shit, no, I already got an episode scheduled with Nate. So I just did I had a topic that I've been wanting to kick around for a while, and it was the vast majority of welding instructors leaving education and going back into the field.
Dude.
So I was
Boy,
like,
do we need to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I've got to put that out just because I know like 8 to 10 instructors that have left or are getting ready to leave in the next couple of months.
So, funny you should say that. I mean, we did the Weld Labs tour. Rush and I did the Weld Labs tour, about a year or so ago. We visited a bunch of schools. I mean, you left.
Yeah, you guys came
Scott,
down and did my school, or my class, and then I left. I think our last day was together.
Yeah, the same day.
Same day.
And Scott Prince just left.
Yeah.
Kristen Albro, Meltdown Metal Art. Kristen Albro just left. But yeah, that's something that I'm seeing a lot of across the country. And, I have not listened to your podcast. I have it in the queue to listen to, and I haven't had time to sit down and listen to it, but I really want to listen to it. So I have not heard anything in this episode. So anything that we might say, you might have already covered. But
if we do, I mean, it'll be great getting a second, opinion, because you visit multiple different schools. I only talk to certain instructors through Instagram or phone calls or text messages or whatever. But I mean, you actually get to see it because you tour around the country and hang out with instructors in their natural environment,
Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to do. I mean, so for my day job at Central, there's a lot of places that I would love to be in and working at, with our customers and, with our salespeople and things like that. However, I am not for everyone, and having somebody that's very by the book come in and teach welding kind of has its certain place. And I totally understand that. And we don't want to alienate our customers. And there's a lot of shops out there, and we've talked about this a lot before, that don't really care about changing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. This is the way that we've always done it. And having somebody like me come in and be really disruptive is not good for business.
Right.
So one of the things that I started doing was traveling to welding schools within our region, out here in the Pacific Northwest, and just spending a day teaching a class or showcasing things like new technology, pulse, STT, hyperfill. And one of the things that I found was that if a student is not afraid of it or given any reason to be afraid of it, they have no problem running it. Like hyperfill is a perfect example. It's 2035 wires simultaneously running into the same puddle at 500 inches a minute each. So this is 18 pounds an hour, 18 inches a minute to make a 5/16 fillet.
Yeah, you're smoking it in there.
Yeah. So I can have 16-year-old girls do this all day long in high school welding programs, have no problem welding this. But you take it to a guy that's been in the shop for 20 years or worked in the industry, and they'll find every reason why it won't work. And I just find it really funny. And I bring up, I'm like, well, Cindy last week was having no problem running this stuff. She actually did a couple overheads with it. I don't know why you can't weld this like 1-inch plate together that you're putting multiple passes in at, 3 or 4 inches a minute. Like, I understand that 18 is a little fast, but do you want to get this done this week or no?
I got to stop you for a second. You said overhead? You're running hyperfill and overhead now?
You can run hyperfill and overhead in the right joint. I mean, much like any sort of spray transfer, like that fillet, a T joint like this, you got a nice heavy plate. I mean, you can put one in there.
Okay.
Like that with the right joint configuration, you could definitely do it.
Gotcha.
Would I recommend doing it all the time? No. But I mean, like tube to tube or something like that in that instance, especially on pulse. I wouldn't say you would do it all the time, but just for laughs,
it can be done.
Definitely, you can be done. Absolutely.
It can be done. Okay.
Much like any other welding thing, it's like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, but welders will be welders, and we will push the limits of what should and shouldn't be done, which I think is great. That's the great thing about welders. We're like, oh, it's supposed to do this, but what if we did this?
Yeah, what else can I do? Kind of like I ran 7018 on Pulse AC.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
That's fun.
It's it feels like you're welding, and the rod is like getting sawed off in sheets.
It's like
yeah. It's pretty interesting.
It's fun.
Did you hang out with Charlie Cross in his garage? Is this where this happened?
So I watched a video. Somebody was talking about AC Pulse. It was a YouTube video. It might have been Chucky 2009 or something, but it was like this. That's an old name. Apparently they weld like that in Europe. And so I went into school the next day, and I was like, how can I do AC Pulse and be able to control my balance with a 7018 electrode? And so I was like, you know what? I walked over and we had the Aspect 375 there in the school, and I was like, I'm just gonna tell it I'm TIG welding, but I'm instead of putting a TIG torch on there, I'm gonna put a stick electrode in there, or a stinger, and then I'm gonna step on the foot pedal and just put it on 4T. So as soon as I strike off, it's gonna maintain the arc. I'll just take my foot off the pedal and just keep cruising. And so I set like my balance at like 70-30 or something like that, or maybe 60-40, somewhere in there. And you can also do that. You can set your specific amperages on DC positive and DC negative. So we got to start playing around with that. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, I think that more of that technology will be kind of more readily available, like once people get that sorted out, because it's definitely like a great way to stick weld. I mean, stick welding with high frequency start, that's pretty sweet.
But you also don't have to worry about arc blow because you're in AC. But the problem with welding in AC is you don't get as much penetration as you do with DC reverse polarity. But if I can control the amperage and the balance of my waveform, I can still get the penetration and I can still get the fill without having to worry about arc blow.
Right. And you can kind of pick and choose. You can lean more on that DC electrode positive side for that penetration, or let's say you're welding on something thinner, you can lean more on that DC electrode negative side.
Yeah.
I mean, and you'd have that adjustment. It just, I think that, for AC TIG, the adjustments in the machine are set up that way and set up so that it's easy to adjust for TIG. But if you basically had that same mode in a stick welding mode, but then the adjustments were not necessarily, they would do the same thing, but were maybe called out in a different way, or had like a visual graphic or something that was showing, hey, I'm getting more penetration on this DCEP side than the DCEN. I think that that's kind of one of the cool things that welders with screens are really helpful for. I love reading about welding, I love learning about welding, but man, I still forget what side is better, balance wise, frequency, like what is this doing? Oh yeah, that's right. So like with a screen, having a visual cue is super helpful.
Yeah.
But so what were we talking about? Oh, schools.
Yeah. So schools, and you were going into different shops. The old guys don't want to run hyperfill.
Yeah. So
Cindy's nailing it though.
Yeah, Cindy's got no problem with hyperfill. So there's really three things that I've really kind of come to figure out, and that I think that all of the future weld science, welding education stuff is going to be based in. And these are the three things that I see that people have the biggest problem with. The number one thing that I see is people don't know what the knobs do.
Yeah.
They don't know what the knobs do.
Why there's paint. There's paint marker on them.
Why there's paint markers, little cardboard houses with numbers on top of them. All of that stuff. People don't understand what the knobs do. And like I said, that with, welders with screens on it, when you start getting into more adjustments and more advanced adjustments, having that visual cue or the quick reference to be able to look it up is super helpful. So, I'm not saying that this is like, that I'm not also guilty of this, but people for MIG welders or stick welders don't understand what increasing and decreasing wire feed speed actually does to like productivity, deposition rate, your weld penetration, like all of that stuff. They don't really understand what they're doing. So it would be like trying to bake something and your oven has no temperature or timer on it, and you can just turn knobs until you get the results that you want. And then that's why people put the paint pens in. They're like, I know that it works here.
Yeah, last time I did it, it turned out okay, so I'm not going to mess with it.
Well, they just ArcZone just posted a great meme about when you finally get your machine dialed in, and somebody touches the knobs or turns the knobs or something like that. But it's so true. So many folks out there have a machine that's set up, and they get it set up a certain way, and they're like, okay, I just don't touch it, just leave it. Well, if you knew what the knobs do, somebody could take the gauges off and you could still set the machine. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest thing that I'm going to start trying to focus on with future welding videos, especially on the educational side. What do the knobs do? And in a useful way. Again, we're not trying to call anybody out. Myself, very, very guilty of this stuff, especially on the TIG welding side. I'm looking at a square wave TIG 355 faceplate right here. and this has a million knobs and switches. How are you ever supposed to remember
where
what
all those knobs go?
do?
Yeah.
So, and this is just TIG welding. You get into advanced process welding and stuff on the MIG welding side. There's that many knobs, but you just don't see them on the face of the machine. So
especially now everything's gone digital. It's all behind the main menu and all that.
Exactly. But if you knew what the knobs do and you made a weld and you said, man, I don't really like how this is turning out, or I wish I could go faster, I wish I could go slower, I wish I wasn't burning through, or I'm not happy with the way that this bead shape is, or I'm getting spatter and I wish that I wasn't because I don't want to pick it off and I don't want to grind it. If you knew what the knobs do and how to tune that out, you would just go for the knobs rather than just keep welding and making these welds that you're not happy with. But I think a lot of people will confuse that with lack of welding skill or ability. And you can have all the skill and ability in the world, but if your machine's set on, like, let's say the wrong polarity, you're going to be fighting with that for the whole day. Like until you kind of understand why or what's going on. And if you don't know, then you just basically just kind of blame yourself. So biggest takeaway, what do the knobs do? People need to understand weld settings. So the next thing is, what do you do when you get your machine set right, your welds look right? How do you test your work? And we've kind of talked a little bit about this. I did that video where it's called Smash Your Welds, and we do fillet weld break tests. And literally all you need is 2 pieces of metal and a hammer and a welder and maybe a piece of concrete on your floor or something that you can break apart. And you just do fillet weld break tests. I mean, and you as a weld inspector understand how valuable that is to be able to be like, oh yeah, we got fusion or we don't.
Yep.
And it puts a lot of the myths to bed immediately on we did the 03 or 045 flux core 71 T1 300 inches a minute on I think it was like 3/8 plate, and I'm like, hey, there's going to be slag in the root. There was slag in the root. We actually ran it all the way up to Scott Prince and I ran it all the way up to like 700 inches a minute in the flat, trying to put a 5/16 fillet weld in with 75/25, not CO2, and we still got slag in the root.
It happens. I mean, like you told me about that, and I went into work the next day, and I told my nighttime instructor, Josh, I mean, this was a couple years ago. I was like, dude, we've got to try this. My buddy Nate says that, you can run this 045 wire, because, I mean, we were already on flux core at that point, gas shielded flux core, and you can't do it without getting slag in the root. And so we both tried a myriad of different settings. I was like, okay, let's try cranking up the voltage a little bit more. Let's drop the wire feed speed. Okay, let's increase wire feed speed, drop the voltage. And all within staying within the parameters that, the manufacturer recommends for that spool of wire. But still getting slag in the root. Yeah. And we'd cut them apart and, look at it and be like, oh shit, there it is again.
It really is, I mean, in AWS will do a D11 structural steel cert, vertical plate, unlimited thickness, and people will qualify at 300 inches a minute. And then they'll take and go weld 10 hours a day at 300 inches a minute, putting 5/16 fillet welds in on 3/8 plus, material thickness, because you're qualified to. But you're doing it at 180 amps ish, and you're doing it with slag in the root, and you're doing it at 4 to 6 inches a minute travel speed. And if you switch to something like metal core for all that flat position work, you could literally cut your weld time in half. Like literally just cut it right in half, and you get way better penetration, way better fusion. But having that conversation with people, like I said earlier, is difficult because a lot of welders are very comfortable doing what they've been doing. And if you get comfortable doing what you're doing and you don't know what the knobs do, now what are you going to do when somebody changes the whole damn thing? Like, oh, new wire, new gas. It's like, where do you even start? So, that's really kind of the new mission is from going out there and working with guys and seeing things like the other thing that I see too is technology that's being like underutilized or just not used.
Well,
you're a perfect example.
Everywhere.
Unfortunately, like we went to Valencia and you guys are running 045 flux core with the most advanced power wave that's on the planet. But you guys had not run STT. It just, no one ever did it. And it's like, that's not necessarily your fault. I kind of, not that I say I like blame Lincoln, but all the welding manufacturers that are putting out this new technology, they got to do a better job at educating people why to use this stuff. Like, having a million knobs and switches that you know nothing about doesn't really do the consumer any good if they're going to flip the wrong switch and make it weld horrible. Like, that gives you the wrong perception of a piece of equipment, regardless of the color of the machine. So I think that, like I said, with the screens, being able to kind of add this explanation behind what's happening when you're turning this knob. So like, if you turn the voltage down, I mean, on a lot of Lincoln's machines, they have that arc effects thing where it shows the
it'll show the profile.
The profile. So I mean, companies expanding that. Miller had on their new Synchro Wave, I think it is, the one that has a screen on it. I think it's a Synchro Wave still. They have visual guides and descriptions when you make AC waveform and balance adjustments. It shows up right on the screen. And like I said before, like, that was super helpful for me that companies are kind of introducing that.
Yeah, it only took them 100 years to realize that welders like pictures.
Yeah, I know. But if you talk to people like on the sales side, so many welders out there are like, I don't want a freaking screen on my, well, what if I break the screen? It's like, you have a piece of glass in your pocket that you carry with you every day, and you don't break the screen on that. Like, and
there's screen protectors that come with your machine, and you can buy, just like, buy new lenses for your hood. You can put a screen protector on there.
There's way more delicate stuff in a weld shop than a 6-inch wide screen on a welder, that you could break, and you don't. So just don't break it. Don't be an animal. Like, I break that in 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm sure you could.
Take care of your shit.
Yeah.
If it was yours, you wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Treat it like you bought it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's really what I've been seeing is like, there's a lot of stuff like that. We went to, I've gone to a couple schools that have power waves, and they're just not using them. They're not using any of these advanced features. And I ask them why, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know it could do that." And it's like, man, okay, like, well, we need to get people out. Like, either I need to come out, or we need to have people come out, or we need to produce videos that kind of showcase why would you use this mode?
Some of
why would you
technology?
Change it to that stuff. I see we had that one instructor, your night instructor, had been welding. Yeah, the guy that welded pipe.
Yeah. And
he said he only welds vertical up because you don't get penetration if you weld vertical down. But we were in Texas.
Well, he's a hull tech from the Navy. So
yeah, exactly.
Everything they did was high pressure.
Right. But we're in Texas, and they're like, yeah, no, like,
downhill,
vertical down, everything.
Yeah, everything's downhill.
Never vertical up. Like, why would you ever do that? So when we brought up STT and we talked about like what this does, he's like, well, that'll never get, penetration or whatever. And I said, well, how much do you want? He's like, well, this is what I want. This is what I'd like to see. And I'm like, all right, fit up a joint. So he fit a joint up, and I had never set a machine for doing this. And I just kind of guesstimated, and I set the machine up on STT for him. We welded a couple little, just plates together, vertical downs. And he welded the whole thing out in a couple minutes. And he just like, and had never run it before. And he's just like, what? Like, this is so much easier. And he welded it all vertical down.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't believe how much easier it was. And that's with me setting it, not really knowing or dialing it in with, not great fit up. And he's over there. He welded this thing out in no time. And he's like, this makes life so much easier. You couldn't do it all the time, but if you're doing rollouts, you're in a hut, or there's no wind, why would you not do that? Why are you grabbing 60-10 when this exists, and it's existed for a long time?
Or running a TIG route when you could run STT and just not have to worry about backing gas.
Yeah.
In certain situations.
STT. Yeah, and they have STT that works in the ditch. now. They have a STT module on a suitcase that plugs directly into the 400X and 400X pipe. You can run it directly off of that. So now you got
that's
STT.
Kind of the problem is everybody's afraid of the newer technology, and for no reason. I mean, they just don't know enough about it. And so you get a lot of the sales guys that, they try to show how this machine can work for that application. But a lot of sales guys, they don't have enough experience with the newer equipment to say, this right here is going to be a game changer. I could, set this machine up and we can make you run, faster, more deposition rates, decrease production time, decrease arc on time and all that other stuff. So but I mean, there's so much stuff that machine is capable of.
Yeah.
That you can start, changing the entire shop. You can upgrade everybody.
And it's the thinking outside the box part that I think is actually the best. It's the welder saying, oh yeah, well, you say it's supposed to run this way, but what if we did this? Because welders are really creative that way. And, you brought up a really good point about like the sales guy. And it's like, yeah, how is the salesperson who doesn't have years of experience under the hood welding going to tell somebody about how different or how powerful a new piece of technology was? That's like literally impossible. I mean, you can read through all the manuals, you can go to all the watch all the PowerPoints, have your briefing with your, local, factory representative, but they're getting that information, passed down from above. They're getting their sales brochures and all the points, the key features and things like that. But when it comes down to like putting the actual weld in, like hyperfill, for example, I thought was amazing. As soon as I welded with it, I was like, this is different. And, I welded it just on some coupons at FabTech, and I was like, this is insanely fast and I like it a lot. And, I think that there's something here, and, went on to be, the first person to get certified in the process with it, through AWS. And then, I flew out to L&H Industrial, where they use that process exclusively. And it was only at that time that I got a chance to weld it on some like 1.5 inch thick, 30, 40 inch long welds on these huge mining buckets. And I was like, this is, it's like night and day. If you put some other process in there, you'd be like, this is going to take all afternoon to make like 3 passes. But in hyperfill, you're like, this is going to take 20 minutes. And it's that kind of like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm like trying to push these companies to start showing. We have these amazing, talented welder influencer folks out there. Why are we not showing them this technology and having them, like, pushing them to do it? It's starting to happen, and you're starting to see some people with some more advanced kit, but you're not necessarily seeing them push the limits of the equipment.
Yeah. But I mean, therein lies a problem too, because like when I was in the class, when I was teaching before I got put into management, like I would go through and I would show my students STT, we would do Rapid Arc, we would do Rapid X, all the different stick applications, TIG, everything. But I would also show them, here's the basic stuff. Here's probably what you're going to run into in industry. So a lot of short circuit, a lot of stick welding, a lot of flux core, but then I would show them the advanced processes the machine's capable of. The problem is now they're armed with this knowledge. They go to work for a company, and you don't want to make any waves when you're new. So you don't say anything. Yeah. You don't walk in there and be like, I could save you a bunch of money by switching your car insurance. You don't throw out a sales pitch and be like, hey, I have access to this information on how we could switch over to an advanced process and start doing this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of the companies, they're not investing in that equipment. So when the student leaves, they've got a freaking Cadillac, at the school, the 300C or an S350 with an advanced module. And then they go into industry, and it's like you got a Miller-Matic 252 from, 1991. Yeah. It's like old school equipment.
Yeah, the welding industry, that's such a huge point. I mean, one of the students from that school in New York, this kid, Noah, he had an internship, like in high school, welding on some parts. And he called me up and he's like, dude, they have like 2 people here that all they do is just grind spatter all day.
Yep.
And he's like, he's like, you told me you can make welds without spatter. And he goes, these are the settings that they're using. This is the gas that they're using. And I think that their voltage is just way too high. And, so he's like, I think that's where the spatter's coming from. So he turned it down and the spatter went away. But they got after him and they're like, well, you're not getting any penetration with that voltage turned down. He turned it down from 28 to 26. Exactly. That's what they said to him. And he calls me and is like, dude, but voltage is not penetration. Wire feed speed's penetration. Yep. And I was like, he's like, and the spatter went away, but they said that it had to be at 28 volts. Otherwise it wasn't penetrating. He's like, basically what gives? And I'm like, man, this is part of this is the other end of the problem out here. Like you said, with the schools, yeah, you can show them all this sweet technology and they can have all this badass kit, but then they get out into the field and they try to have that conversation about, it's like, dude, you could have those two people that are grinding just not grinding anymore.
Yeah, you can teach them how to weld in 20 minutes with this newer technology and have them, increase your productivity threefold.
Yeah, I mean, and he didn't even have them to change. He didn't even have them. They didn't even need to change machines or wire or gas or anything. It's just somebody at some point told them that they have to have 28 volts to have penetration, which is wrong. And whoever that person was that told them that, the people that run the show over there, they took it to heart, and now that's just where they're going to live. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's just like they're willing to pay two people to grind all day. How much does that cost? And it's like, then you think about, well, if they didn't have to grind, they could be welders. And then the money that they were spending on grinding could get invested in either new equipment, more, just more dollars per hour that can go to your welders. And then not to mention, you just have this much better, smoother, cleaner product that goes out the door. And it's like, so few companies are willing to look at their procedures or look at the way that they do things. And that's a problem. I mean, that's the biggest challenge that I face as the weld scientist, as a subject matter expert in procedure development. It's not the procedure, it's the getting people to use it or feel that they want to make that change. It's not, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be new technology. It could just be a different wire and gas combination or different settings. I mean, if you have a 252 and you weld thicker stuff all the time, most people run 045 flux core, and it's like you could take 9010 and 035 solid wire and all those flat welds. I mean, you could run 500 inches a minute, 26 volts, and be spraying and be faster welding, better penetrating, cleaner welds than you would have with that 045 flux core on the same machine. And you'd be, right around 230 amps, right up on the limit of it. Sure, but it's, you can get a lot out of just about any machine that you got if you understand kind of these factors that are,
you got to understand the basics and the theory of welding. I went to a company probably a couple months ago. They called me up and they're like, hey, we need to get some of our guys certified. Come in, let's talk. So I was like, okay, cool. So I roll in there and they've got these jobs and everything. And they just wanted a simple, short circuit certification. And as we got to talking, I was like, well, you can run short circuit on this material because it's sheet gauge, but you've got some really thick stuff over here. That's all, 3/8 half-inch material. I said, you could, just switch over your gas. You can run this in spray transfer, because short circuit's not going to cut it. You need to step up. You can run a spray transfer on this. And they're like, okay. And I said, but once you get out of position, you're not going to be able to do that. And they don't have the machines to be able to do pulse. They just got regular Miller-Matic 252. So I was like, they can spray all day, but they can't take it out of position. So I said, okay, well, if you're going to take it out of position, you could do that with the short circuit, but you can't do it on that thickness of material. So let's switch over to a gas-shielded flux core. Because we're working with the equipment. They're not buying any new equipment. Yeah. And so we started having that conversation. And then, so I ended up developing 5 different procedures for them and then getting all their welders tested. But now they're meeting all the requirements of the contract documents that they had. Because had they went through and just shot everything with short circuit, none of it would have passed. Yeah. So when I go in there, I try to educate the client as well as, like you guys are hiring me to come out here and certify your welders, but let me educate you on some other stuff here.
Yeah, especially on that process, when people are looking to get certified, or like we want to certify our shop, if you're going to do that at that time, you're locking yourself into plus or minus 10% of the wire feet speed or amperage and 7% of the voltage. So, why not do some procedure optimization at that same time?
Yeah.
And if your weld inspector is just there to make sure that like you guys can weld, he's just going to come in and write down where you guys have always been and make sure that people can pass. Like, that's one thing. But now, when are you ever going to look at those procedures again? You're just going to be like, all right, sweet, we're certified now, just go back to welding. But if you have someone like yourself or myself or my coworker Brian, who now, when they come in and ask these questions, hey, we want to get certified, you start asking them the questions. Hey, have you considered spray transfer? Because if I lock you in at 250 inches a minute with a short circuit, this is going to be good for 8-inch material, but beyond that, this is not going to work for everything.
Yeah.
Could you pass a vertical 1-inch plate on short circuit? Yeah, probably, if you tried really hard and preheat it, maybe, but the reality of trying to weld on that stuff, like we were saying, is it's slow. There's a better way to do it. I really like that you brought up that working it within the equipment. The goal for me is not to get people to buy a Power Wave. I just want you to be able to weld faster when it's time to weld, and be successful.
Yeah, I want to help you do your job better.
Yeah, I had a guy reach out to me that's was a central customer. He's doing vertical. He wanted to switch away from flux core because he heard you can run pulse vertical, out of position. And he was just having a hard time with the testing and stuff like that, trying to run pulse vertical. He's just I can't get this thing to lay in there really well and blah, blah, blah. Well, in order to run pulse vertical, you can only run it at maybe 350 inches a minute vertical, which is basically kind of the upper end of short circuit anyways. With 035, it's 350, right around 350 inches a minute is just shy of 200 amps. Well, in pulse, you're pulsing your amperage and you get that puddle, stability, you get a lot of that puddle stability, but your deposition rate is extremely low. So it's hey, what do you want to replace with this? What's the majority of the welding that you're doing? He's like, well, I'm, do a lot of these columns and stuff. So it's just tube to plate. And I'm like, do you weld all this in position? He's like, pretty much everything. And I was like, I'm going to bring you some 045 metal core. Mm-hmm. And we're going to run 045 metal core instead of this stuff. And we'll run it in position. And we can qualify you to D11, half inch to half inch material, 5/16 fillet weld, start and stop in the middle, 2 macros, and you're qualified for unlimited thickness, with this metal core, in fillets in the 2F, which is what you would run it in anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's an easier credential to obtain. It's actually the same exact one I use to do the hyperfill certs. We welded on that. And it's just another way of kind of looking at the certification process. And, thankfully this customer was number one, he reached out and asked. It was hey, can you help me with this? That's a huge leg up on people that are I don't want to ask anybody for help. Just the fact that you're willing to reach out and say, hey, am I doing this right? And I didn't belittle him for what he was doing. I just said, hey, I'm going to bring this thing out and let's try it. And he was willing to try it. And he's like, wait a minute, this is so much easier. Why? How come nobody talks about this stuff? Yeah. And it's I don't know.
Those are the customers that I like working with. Cause like I said, they'll call me out there to do weld certs and I'm, then they'll start asking me questions. I had another company that they wanted to do develop a procedure to do partial joint penetration on thick wall pipe. But yeah. It's just slammed together. It's a partial joint penetration. They're, again, this completely separate company. They want to run it short circuit. And I'm like, that's not going to work, man. You got 5/8 thickness, wall thickness on there. It's not going to work, especially if you to do, I can't give too many deals or details away, but if you want it to do what it needs to do, you're not going to be able to run it with that. So I talked them into gas shielded flux core, because everything that they do, it's going to be out in the field. They've already got all this stuff with them anyway. So, why not? I mean, they were going to try and run it short circuit. And I was like, yeah, no, you don't need to do that. So I actually, in addition to that, they said, well, we don't know how to run this stuff. And I said, okay, I can walk you through it. I can do a demo. I can't train you and certify your guys. But what I do have, I have a friend who is a welding instructor, and, Saturdays or, before or after class, he can come in here and train your guys a couple at a time. Once you guys get shored up and comfortable with it, I can come back in and test you. And that's exactly what we did. My buddy came in 2 to 3 days, got them all, shored up with the process. I mean, they could all weld. They just never ran gas shielded flux core around a pipe before. And he went in there and showed them exactly how to do it. Went in there, tested them all. Well, we developed the procedure first, got all the results back, made the WPS. So kind of locked them into their settings and then turned them loose, and they welded all out and they all passed.
I think that there's a lot to be said for that on-site, on-the-job training, and especially in a focused way. And that's kind of the other thing that we were kind of talking about a little bit before we jumped on the podcast. That's kind of the future of what I think weld science education is going to be. Like, I would really love to come out and teach a class on deposition rate, or teach a class on that, like what it is, how do you affect it, why does it matter? And the class is about the why. And if you get welders like the why behind something, welders are fierce. Like, they're like, oh man. And it's especially like if it makes their job easier. I mean, welding is hot, it's dirty, it's dangerous, and it's in high demand always. Like, I don't know of any company that's like, yeah, we'll get around to welding this. Like, everything's usually a fire drill. Like, we need these done last week.
Yeah, it's always a hot job.
Yeah. So, looking at things like that and trying to make that entry point a little less steep for people is something that I'm hoping to do. I mean, now that you got, your shop coming together, I would love to come out and do that. Planning on doing some stuff with, the Arc Labs welding school, working on maybe putting together like an event where, we can have a bunch of influencers get together, like an influencer welding event, like welding education event, which I think would be really cool. We've talked about doing something like this in the past, but I think like a job fair type of influencer welding event, like, totally needs to happen, like outside of FabTech.
Yeah, that'd be pretty dope. So that's one of the things I wanted to do at the school, because I mean, we're going to run our regular week-long classes, but that's not going to happen every single week of the month. Yeah. And evening classes, weekend classes, all that stuff. But in addition, I want to do like employer training, like send, 5 or 6 year employees to me at a time. I'll get them all trained up myself, or somebody else will. And then we can also get them certified right there at the school, so they can get trained and certified by the end of the week, depending on what skill set they come in with. But you want to learn, advanced technology, come on in. I can show you exactly how to do that, just kind of set that up. But I also want to open it up to, I've been talking to Dusty from Pacific Arc TIG Welding. I want to have him come out there and put on a class, specifically for TIG welding. I mean, you're more than welcome to come out and put on a specific class for, whatever floats your boat. You want to talk about penetration, deposition, all that stuff. I mean, we can set whatever up. I mean, and that's the beauty of it, is we can teach welding the way that we know welding needs to be taught. Yeah. It doesn't have to be state mandated curriculum. And, you got to do 20% of your training online and, this much in the class. We don't have to do that shit. We can teach you exactly what you need to know to be a proficient welder.
There is so much, I think, like, perception in the industry that getting into a welding job is like impossible. And I've said it a million times. Have you tried asking? Have you tried going to that weld shop that you drive past every day and say, I wish I worked there, and stopped in and just said, what does it take to get a job here? I love welding. I took welding for a week in high school one time, and it was the most fun I ever had. Or I took a 3-night introduction to welding training course one time 6 years ago, and I can't sleep at night without thinking about welding. I would love to come build your buggies. I would love to come weld on these trailers or whatever. people need to just try that, because companies are telling us that they're desperate for welders. They want to hire people. And in this whole like, well, you need 5 years of experience stuff, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
That's not true. And that's companies that are asking for crazy experience and stuff like that. Sure, that's fine. I would still get in my car and drive to those places, even if I had 3 days of experience.
And apply. Well, I used to tell that to my students all the time, because we'd be getting close to graduation and they've already done their resumes. We've done mock interviews. They've got their certs. They're just about done with their training, And so it's at that point where they're starting to look for work, and they're like, hey, Mr. Becker, everything that I look at says 5 to 7 years worth of experience. Cool. Apply. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Apply. Because I guarantee you're coming out of this class with a lot more experience than a lot of welders are going to have 5 to 7 years in.
Yeah.
So go in there, take their weld test, and just see if you can get a weld test. If you can get a weld test, you're probably going to get the job.
Yes.
Just for the simple fact that, like, when you walk in there, you know how to set your machine up, because a lot of companies are going to go over there and spin those little knobby things on the front of the machine. And when you walk over there and you know exactly what every knob does, and you can dial that thing in and put down a good looking weld, they're gonna be like, oh shit, like, you're teachable.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're gonna give you a shot. And 9 times out of 10, they'd come back, hey, Mr. Becker, I got the job. Well, what happened to that 5-7 years experience you didn't have? Well, they hired me anyway. They saw, how my welds looked, and they said, when can you start?
Yeah. You're like, right now.
Yeah, right now. I said, shit, man.
Exactly.
Make sure, make it a graduation, but you can leave class right now if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that with, traveling around and seeing all these schools and the need in all these schools, I think part of the reason the schools are leaving is because obviously these class sizes are getting enormous.
Yep.
You got instructors that don't get the support that they need, which is, you've seen like first we did the Weld Labs videos, and then I did a couple of videos afterwards that, kind of focus a lot more on the instructors and stuff. And that's not on accident. It's because these instructors are doing so much work in their communities, and they're trying, but no one knows. There is instructors that I haven't even met that maybe don't even have social media, have no idea who I am, that are definitely putting in the work and building smart, like, great welders and doing the best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so many people that just don't get recognized or noticed. And, when Lincoln was willing to sponsor going out and doing these events and stuff, and, the video doesn't necessarily need to be about us. Like, people know that they know who we are. You know what I mean? And I think that highlighting these instructors and stuff and giving them a lot more credit, like where it's due, has been really, it's been really helpful to them. Just from kind of seeing these guys, I'm sure that now they've, like, you talk to Scott Prince, I'm sure, and you talk to Joe Bilodeau, I'm sure, and all these guys from that ended up in the videos, but these guys are like going places in the industry, like they're not going away. And I just don't understand why a lot of the administration just like completely misses the boat with a lot of this stuff. Like, we have advisory boards that we're on, and we make our points and we say the things that we, believe are, the direction that we need to head. And then, like, it seems like the schools and stuff, like, it goes through all the paperwork, and by the time it gets back to, all right, well, this is what you're teaching, it's like, man, like, what happened to what we talked about like 6 months ago?
Yeah, what happened about all the great ideas and points and stuff we were going to start implementing from the advisory board meeting? Yeah, that's one of the things I brought up on the show is, like, administrators, listen to your instructors. You hired them because they know how to weld. You don't. You hired a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Let them do their thing. Let them go in there and teach welding. Take the handcuffs off. Let them go in there and teach. Let them teach work ethics while they're there. Attendance and punctuation are two huge things that industry will not put up with. I don't care what job you're in, whether it's blue collar, white collar, skilled trades, admin, whatever. Nobody's going to put up with that shit. If you're late and you're only showing up, 4 out of 5 days, it's not going to last long. So build that work ethic while they're in class.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of instructors out there that, yeah, they try to do this. I mean, but I think back to when I was teaching my welding program. I think I had maybe $3,000 or $4,000 budget when I first started my welding program, and I had 20 plus kids.
Are you sure you didn't listen to my episode?
What? I did not listen to
everything you've brought up is shit that I was talking about.
Shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Run a welding program on a shoestring budget. I mean, I just did a 3-day demo welding program for Goodwill. Goodwill does they have a lot of like workforce development programs and things like that, and they have a welding program in other places, but they're looking to expand and kind of develop an introduction to welding program, kind of like they have for their other skilled trades and stuff. And we had a shoestring budget to put this thing on with, and it's really challenging to teach people how to weld when you don't have money for material, or material cost is so much. People need to have stuff to weld on. And I'm not just talking like stuff that's normally thrown out in the bin and, old refrigerators cut up and futons and shit with paint on it. Like, that's not stuff that you give students to learn how to weld. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not it's what you got in a lot of cases. But, as a administrator that's kind of putting a budget together for a program, like, you got to have money available for that kind of stuff, or be partnering with a local, fabricator or welding shop or something like that can provide that sort of stuff at no cost to the school. That's what I had to do in my program. I went to the folks at GA Braun. They build stainless steel washers and dryers and things like that, and it's in Syracuse. And I would take my truck over there and load the bed of my 1500 Chevy up, like till it was like sitting on the Timberns in the back, and take their scrap bin over, and it was all the same exact material thickness and same stuff that they were welding on in their facility. So there's kind of a benefit to that. And I would bring back all the other scrap and just throw it back in the scrap bin. But I mean, that's a lot of work for the instructor. Then like, not everyone can do that. Not everyone has a pickup truck that they can, transport that over to, or a connection with a local fab shop that has unlimited, scrap bins that you can constantly cycle material through. But the benefit of working with a program like that, or setting something up like that is you build that relationship with the community. The kids are welding on the same exact material type and thickness that they would be welding on in that position. Mm-hmm. So, they get a lot of great practice. So, I mean, not that these are like, groundbreaking concepts by any means, get a local scrap bin. Like, we've thought of that. But I mean, maybe there's an administrator that's listening to the podcast that hasn't thought to, help facilitate that type of stuff. And I mean, at every school that we've been to, over the past couple of years, the instructor is struggling in one way or another. Like, I mean, even the best instructors, like the ones that we featured in the videos, these folks are struggling to get support from administrators, local companies, things like that. Like, everybody is. So if companies are saying, man, we really need to get more welders, it's like, you need to reach out to your local high school, community college, weld shop, welding program, and ask what you can do to help, because we're struggling out here for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's when I first got into education. I only worked Monday through Thursday at the first school that I was at. So Fridays I would, on my own time, because I wanted to build a successful program, I would go out and meet with local industry. I'd search Google, pull up 15-mile radius from the school. Okay, I can visit these 3 companies today. And I'd call them up on Thursday and be like, hey, can I meet with you at 8 o'clock tomorrow? Can I meet with you at 10:30? Can I meet with you guys at 1:30? And just go from one shop to the next. Introduce myself, drop off business cards, say, hey, if you ever got to get rid of scrap material or whatever, just let me know. Because like you said, if you get scrap material from company A, and I teach a bunch of students how to weld on that exact same material that they're welding on day in and day out, I can take that student and place them with that company once they graduate. Just because they're welding on the same exact shit the company is. That's how they learned how to do it. They trained on that specific material. that thickness, that diameter, whatever the case may be. But you start building up those relationships, and then the companies are like, hey, they'll start calling you up. Hey, we got 3 or 4 machines. We just upgraded our shop. Do you want these machines? Yeah, I'll be there on Friday to pick them up. Oh, don't worry. I can put them on a flatbed right now. I got to get them out of here. Okay. Yeah. You're done. Yeah. Send them over.
It's, but it's also hard too for a lot of instructors if they don't have the time to do that. A lot of instructors are,
don't even have enough time to grade papers.
Yeah. I mean, it's been really interesting to see, like I said, these challenges that people are facing. That's why I put so much time into this education stuff is, we need to build better welders from the ground up. I'm not saying that the education system is broken, but the things like that you brought up earlier, where you do have some, a student that does know, in fact, how something works or has seen and used a piece of kit that's more advanced, and then they get out into the field and that just gets completely squashed. So, I think that, I don't know, what is it that people just need to be more open-minded, I guess, like companies need to be more open-minded to maybe doing things differently. I keep thinking about welding it's so new. Welding's only like 100 years old as we know it. Electric arc welding is only about 100 years old. Think about how far your cell phone has come since 2000.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite 20 years ago.
Yeah, I remember the Motorola Razor.
Yeah, exactly. Flip phones in the 2000s, those BART type phones like Nextel, like think
the Nokia
about how
6100.
Yeah,
I think it was bulletproof.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
a Panasonic Tough Book.
Right, exactly. Those were also super cool. I had one of those. The OG ones that look like
a little suitcase.
Yeah, those are super cool. Yeah, I had those. I remember I had one of those in high school, and I had a Verizon cell phone, and you could plug the phone in and connect to the internet. I remember being able to be on like AOL Instant Messenger through my cell phone.
High speed, low drag in high school. I had a pager in high school. Well, no, I think I got my first cell phone 11th grade, because you could stop by 7-Eleven and pick up a prepaid cell phone or whatever, and then you just keep buying cards and reloading it. Like, damn, I need another 100 minutes. $20.
Yeah, I had when I was 12, I got a job at this local computer store called Bruin Appliance or Bruin Computer and Appliance or something like that, and they would get like pallets of old computers from like a company that upgraded all their computer systems, and they would scrap them. So they would take all the individual parts out. So that was like one of my first paying jobs that I had to get like working papers for. I was like disassembling computers, and I could only work like, like maybe 10 hours a week or something. But I wanted to work like, every day until they closed and whatever. So they gave me store credit for all these other hours and stuff. Probably illegal, but whatever. Yeah,
definitely. But hey, taught you work illegal. Ethics.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a Panasonic Tough Book that I got, that was in on trade or something. I used my like store credit to buy like a flat screen monitor. I built my own computer and, all that. I was a super nerd, but
it's pretty dope. Yeah, you were saying welding technology past 100 years?
Sorry. Oh, yeah. I don't know. We just got off on a complete tangent there. Yeah, welding technology is only like 100 years old. So, I mean, just think about how far things have come in the past 20 years, technology-wise, like in your phone. Welding technology in the past 20 years has also been advancing, and if you're the kind of person that's like, well, I've always done it this way, it's like, all right, well, stick with your Motorola flip phone, but there's going to be people out there surfing the internet, texting, taking pictures, like doing all this other stuff. It's like that you don't even know about. And I think that, yeah, we got to start backfilling the industry with more open-minded welders, I think is one of the biggest things. And whether that's high school students or people that are just getting into the industry from an adjacent industry, an adult student that's looking to change their career, these folks are pretty open-minded. So, showing them all this cool stuff, but then I don't know what we're going to do about a lot of these shops that are like, well, this is the way we've always done it. Like, I don't know how to solve that problem, but...
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Art Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders, my personal choice for at-home and small business welding machines and plasma cutters. If you're just starting out on your journey, don't feel pressured to pay extra just for a paint job. You can get an Everlast machine for a fraction of the price of some of the other major manufacturers out there without sacrificing performance, features, or a warranty. That's right, all Everlast IGBT inverter machines come with a standard 5-year warranty right out of the box. And Everlast customer service is top-notch. And as an added bonus, you can get a free upgraded foot pedal and TIG torch when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal when you type in Art Junkies in the comment section at checkout when you shop everlastwelders.com. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by Workbench Pros. We live in an age where precision and efficiency are expected in our industry, and accuracy is non-negotiable. That's why there's workbenchpros.com. Shop their site today and take your fabrication skills to the next level and decrease time on build and increase productivity and accuracy. Workbench Pros carries a full line of fabrication tables, tools, and accessories, and they provide fast, easy shipping right to your door. Workbench Pros carries all the brands you know and love, like Strong Hand Tools, Fireball, Good Hand, Norton, Stabila, and more. Check them out today and see what you've been missing out on at workbenchpros.com. Workbench Pros. It's where the pros go. Now let's get back to the show. I think they'll start making the shift because, eventually that machine's going to go down and they're going to have to buy a new one. And the only thing you can buy is an up-to-date version of a welding machine. Like, I was going to say, use that same comparison, like try to buy a flip phone, but Malachi stopped by last night and he still has a flip phone. He went and bought a brand new flip phone.
They do still make
Dude,
those.
Blows my mind. But at least
they
he can do emails with it and he can send and receive photos. So that's good. He's slowly migrating.
They still make DC 600s, I think, though, too. You know,
but
probably.
most of your companies, they're going to start getting these younger kids in, and that's why I took the time to buy advanced welding equipment. Number one, we had the budget for it. We were fortunate enough to receive like a bunch of different grants, so I never had a problem getting materials, consumables, machines. Like that was never an issue at the school that I was teaching at, the second school anyway. So having access to that stuff, my thought process was, okay, I'm training the next generation of welders. Yeah. You've got the baby boomers and all these people that are, I can't remember the stats. There's thousands of welders leaving the workforce per day. We've got this massive welder shortage. Well, if I can teach my students how to utilize this equipment, they get placed in industry, they get put into a supervisory role. Now they have buying power. So they can say, hey, you know what? Instead of doing it the way y'all been doing it for 20 years, we can pull the trigger on this machine over here and increase productivity this way. We can, for the better. We can increase productivity. We can get twice the amount of parts out. Oh, yeah, and if we switch our gas, we can eliminate a lot of spatter because we can do a spray transfer. Like, they'll be able to educate, the owner or the supervisor or the engineer or whatever the case may be. But if we educate the students that are going into industry now, they might have to wait a couple of years for them to shine. But once they get into that position where they have buying power, where they are a supervisor, you're going to see a major shift.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's been my mentality, like basically since I left, working for Airgas, is I was like, man, like it's really hard to change people that are already doing things a certain way. It's a lot easier problem to address backfeeding people into the industry so that they, so that in 5 years, 10 years down the road, like you said, they have buying power. They're now the shop supervisor. They've cut their teeth, but they're open-minded. Mm-hmm. And I think that, having like a podcast or a social media account where we have we're having these conversations and we're talking about the difficulties and we're talking about these other processes. And I think that helps kind of bring down that like stigma of making these changes as well. And that's, everybody's got to do their part. Like, I love working with Lincoln because they have been super supportive of the education side for me, like giving me all the resources and stuff that I need to go do what I do. But this has always been kind of like, I'm just trying to set an example for other people to do the same type of thing, which you're doing out there, doing inspections and stuff. And we're not unique. There's just a few of us, unfortunately. But I think that in the future, there's the people that listen to the podcast and have watched the videos and that are in the books and studying and reading and taking the Charlie Cross classes. those people are going to be in a position of power. And, if you can save your company 50% of the weld time, you're like a hero at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool. I'm not going anywhere in the industry ever. So
no, I think I found my niche, man.
Yeah,
this welding shit's for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, as much as I enjoy doing other things, like, I still teach in that class to Goodwill, this introduction to welding class. I mean, I was teaching folks that had never welded before. Man, it never gets old.
No.
Seeing somebody weld for the first time.
And they get excited. They get that little eureka moment and their eyes
just
light up.
Yeah, like that like hood lift when they like see what they did. There's nothing like that. And it's people get so hooked like so fast. So I think, just showing different people that you wouldn't normally think could be welders. That's another great option. I've talked about that a lot in the past too. Just, why are we putting the shithead kids in the welding program? Like, why do we not have the smart kids from the science class going to the welding program, or somebody who's really good at math, or somebody who is passing all of their classes? Like, why are we not putting these people like, hey, wicked smart kid, have you tried welding too? Because, man, like if you're a super smart welder, I mean, you can really do some damage out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, they start getting fed the same bullshit we got fed growing up. Like, oh, you got to go to college. Oh, you're smart. You can get scholarships. Schools will, support you to go out there and attend their classes and everything. You can get a completely free ride. And if you want to be something when you grow up, you got to get a degree. So, you get your degree for free because you're super smart. So stay away from that vocational trade stuff. That's where all the dumb kids hang out.
Yeah,
I think that mentality is slowly starting to shift. We had one lady. She was recently she was a new principal for a high school, and that was the first thing she did. Is she brought over several students from the high school class to come check out the welding program because she valued skilled trades. Yeah. And she didn't have that mentality like, oh, this is for the kids that that aren't going to take the SATs this year. I mean, this is for everybody. Yeah. She valued skilled trades and wanted to, like open the doors and show them like there's so much more in the job market than just, academia. Becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist or an engineer, which don't get me wrong, we need those too, but we also need welders of all different shapes, sizes, and backgrounds and all that.
Yeah, welding is such a diverse industry, both in like the people that go in the industry, but also like what you can do as a career as a welder. Like welding gets kind of put in that box where people think that, oh, I'm a welder, so you're either, I don't know, like you just get in your head that like, okay, I'm going to be under a dark hood in a gloomy shop all day. My face is going to be dirty. And it's like, no, that's not the only career that's in the welding industry. I mean, you could be a welding engineer. You could be, your job is a job. Like there could be another amazing welding podcaster or welding YouTuber, or like all of that stuff still is available for people if that's something that they really want to do. If you want to wear the Indochino suit to work every day, and you could work in welding sales, you could work in product management or product development or something like that. Like there's so many opportunities for people to do something other than just be dirty welding. But being dirty welding, I think, is the coolest one of those jobs.
It's the most fun.
It's the most fun, I think.
That maybe the guys in the lab coats at Lincoln that go through and test everything. That'd be kind of. I think that would be kind of cool for a couple of weeks. But when you're doing the same shit over and over again, until something new pops up, that'd be kind of a cool. Like I geeked out when we went up there and seen all the lab coat guys. They're doing all the macro etches and mass spectrometry and all that stuff. I mean, that's pretty freaking cool.
I do enjoy the lab coat guys. Yeah. My favorite people to hang out with. Yeah. The R&D space is insane. Like just the stuff that's coming out. I've been talking to my friend over in Europe, David Kilburn. He runs laser welding. I mean, and not laser welding like the handheld laser welding like you're thinking.
Light weld 350 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like this is welding like heavy aluminum at 300 inches a minute.
Holy shit.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, oh man, 18 inches a minute, so fast. And he's like, ha, funny. It's cute. But yeah, I mean, this is like robotics and I mean, that stuff exists. It's happening today. And that's a career. That's something that you definitely need to know what the knobs do.
Yeah.
300 inches a minute, you're going to make a bad weld really quickly if it's not set
destroy a lot of valuable material.
Yeah, but like, I mean, imagine what that job pays.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, this is going to Mars, so we only have one. Better make it right. Like, the person that's making that weld is not making 50 grand a year.
No.
Like that's not that's not that kind of. You're like the cleaner in in Pulp Fiction at that point. You're
Right.
just in there, like, you just name your price and that kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I think that have we beat that to death yet? Welding is cool.
Yeah, no, not yet. But
Not yet.
I think
We still
another
got more.
thing is, like all the new technology that's coming out as far as like robotics, cobots, automation, all that stuff. I mean,
Cobots
I
are
think
so
you're going to
cool.
start getting kids involved in welding a lot more because, hell, I mean, half the Instagram people I see half the people I see on Instagram, they're running their CNC plasma cutters with an Xbox controller.
Oh yeah.
And now they're running cobots with freaking iPads or touchscreen pads. I mean, so it's,
Oh yeah.
I mean, my son's doing the same thing right now. I guarantee it. He's either got an iPad in his hand or a game controller right now.
Yeah, and it's like, I've said this, I'm going to call this again on your podcast. So cobots, and just like I said with the welding technology, it's not what the engineers come up with and say, hey, this is what it does, because they put it in this box and they're like, this is what it's designed for, this is what it's used for. Well, then you take a welder who can make anything work, and then you give them that tool in the toolbox and you're like, what do you think that you could do with this? That's where I think that things like cobots and this advanced technology is really going to blow people's minds. It's currently living in a box. Welders have not necessarily taken it under their wing yet. But
It's
plasma,
coming.
the plasma tables, the home plasma tables, and that kind of stuff, they're making cool stuff with all the time. They have no problem doing that. And I don't have a lot of automation experience with robotics, plasma tables, or anything like that. But the new Cooper software and that user interface it makes it so easy. I mean, I was at Con Expo doing demos in front of people and, not crashing the robot and like actually being able to make, the correct movements and that kind of stuff in no time, programming in minutes. And if I can program in minutes with zero experience as far as like programming, and I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself a gamer or anything like that. So I'm not even that adept, I don't have any special skills in that area. But you take somebody who's currently 15 or 16 that's been playing video games their whole lives and grew up with an iPad in their hand, and you give them that same exact piece of kit, they're going to already be able to do things that I just wouldn't understand. It's like, ask your dad to, send you an email with a photo in it from an iPhone. Like, good luck. But it's like, that's the same thing. Like, kids nowadays, or, people that are younger than us or half our age nowadays, that's the same thing. You give them an iPad, but now it's connected to a robot. They're going to be able to do things that's like, you dummy. Like, how did you miss this?
Yeah, how do you not know how to do this? That's the funny thing. Is like, growing up, like, you always give the older folks, a hard time because they can't send an email with a photo in it or something.
Yeah.
But then, like, the kids nowadays, like, they're doing stuff, and it's like, I just don't have the mental capacity to get into half the shit that they're doing. So I kind of understand like how the older generation, they were like, cell phones, who needs that?
Yeah. Oh, I know. I definitely am starting to feel that, like the old, like, yeah,
The
feel
old
my
school
age.
mentality. Like, I'm
Feel my
not
age
going
a
to
little
bother
bit.
learning about this crypto shit. I ain't got
Yeah,
time
exactly.
for that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm almost like, where are my knobs and switches?
Yeah, exactly. It's all touchscreen now, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think that's super exciting. I mean, and being able to have, like, you have this school now, and now you have this opportunity to show people that stuff. We have the opportunity on like a podcast or YouTube or whatever to be able to have this conversation and talk about these kind of things and be like, yeah, man, hey, I don't know necessarily everything that there is to know about it, but like, if this is something that interests you, you should look into welding, or you should try and get yourself in front of one. You know, I don't have my cobot yet. I'm allegedly going to get a cobot at some point. I would love for that to happen. And if that's the case, then you better believe I'm going to be bringing that thing all over the place, anywhere that people want to see it. So that people can have that opportunity to show, to see it. Same thing with like the mini excavator. I have somebody over the house. I'm like, you want to run the excavator? They're like, yeah. It's like, just show them. Like, they might not have ever have that opportunity, but if you don't show them they don't have this opportunity, like, how are they going to know how cool it is?
Yeah.
Have you run a cobot yet?
Yeah. When I went up to the WPS class with Charlie, we got to mess around with it for a little bit. Not too much, but we did a lot of hyperfill. But they were showing off the robot and everything, which at the time I think I had one in my school because Lincoln was kind of using it to demo for different clients and customers and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I got to mess around with it for a little bit.
Early days of
the cobot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the new software is like it's like completely different, like not even the same. It makes it so much easier.
I just want to spend a couple hours with it.
Yeah, I want to as well. Like, I haven't had the longest time that I got was when I was at Con Expo. Like, I went and wandered around and saw all the stuff that I wanted, and then they had the cobot set up, and they had the new version of the software on it. I'm like, man, I want to just play with this thing. And they're like, here you go. Here's the tablet. Like, just show people how to use it. So I just would program it, move the parts around, program it some more. I only crashed it like one time, maybe, which is fine.
Yeah, you can get it back out of it. I mean, they got, the bump sensors and all that to where if they hit something, they'll stop. Because, I mean, they're virtually safe to work next to.
Yeah, you can work next to it. You can work next to it without any problem.
Yeah, and if you bump into it, it stops. And it's like, okay, I won't move until you tell me to.
Yeah, exactly.
First rule of being a robot, do no harm. Oh, no, wait, that's a doctor. Same thing.
Yeah, those cobots are pretty sweet. Like, I definitely feel the same way. I want to have some more time with them. But just like I said, man, I think that I'm calling it, like, once younger folks get their hands on it, it's like game over. It's like having an amazing welder, like, that just works for you and does it's like having a Terminator, but that welds, essentially.
It doesn't run around with a 12-gauge shotgun on a Harley.
Yeah, but you're John Connor, and now you have a welding Terminator, and you can be like, hey, make this weld, and they make it perfect every single time, without excuse, without nothing. Fast, perfect, the right way. And it's like, you just have to tell it what to do.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the additive manufacturing yet?
Oh, yeah, that's so wild.
Dude, that shit is nuts. I went to the AISC convention up in Charlotte, and I sat in Teresa Melfi's class. So I'm actually going to have her on the podcast soon to talk about additive manufacturing, because I still don't understand it 100%. But, I mean, the stuff that they can do with that is just insane.
Yeah, with laser, like, the cool thing about laser welding is your deposition rate is no longer tied to amperage. So, like, any process of wire welding, typically your amperage determines what your deposition rate is. So if you go to a larger wire, right, to deposit more metal, it's going to put out more amps, like, because you're now carrying more current because the wire is larger. Or if you turn up your wire feed speed, you're going to get, more amperage because it's able to carry more current, because the wire's like filling in, it's moving. So you have, like, typically, like, deposition rate is tied. It's tied to your wire feed speed. You turn your wire feed speed up, like, obviously more metal's going in. But now with laser, you can set your wire feed speed to whatever you want, and the laser is just melting the wire.
Well, with this, I want to say with this one, they're just using like a regular MIG gun.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, add laser to 3D manufacturing, additive manufacturing. And now you can control
production speed.
Yeah. And now you can control heat input as well.
Yeah.
Because, heat input's amps times volts times 60 divided by travel speed, joules per inch. Then you're like, well, if I turn my wire feed speed up, my amperage is going to increase, and you'll have, a higher travel speed. So you can therefore, like, decrease your heat input or whatever. But as you keep turning this wire up, you keep increasing your amperage. If you're like, man, I don't I don't want any more amperage. I have all the penetration that I want. I don't want to nuke this thing, but I want to put more metal in so I can move faster. The laser can just give you the amount of energy that you need independent of the wire feed speed.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
It is freaking wild. And it's just what you need. Not any more, not any less. It's like
so it's
insanely
consistent.
Precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, insanely precise.
I was wondering, because I was like, if you're just like manufacturing stuff out of weld metal, how are you like, because you have to develop welding procedures for this. I mean, the code books haven't even caught up to it yet. I mean, that's how new this technology is.
Yeah.
So she was telling me that they make welding samples. So they'll make an entire weld metal sample, or a sample entirely out of weld metal, and then they'll machine that down. That's when they can do their bend tests. They can do Sharpie V-notch. They can do tensils. They can do like all fatigue testing, like all these different tests. Because they'll just, instead of like grabbing some coupons and welding it together, they'll just do an entire weld metal coupon.
Yeah.
And then they'll machine it down and start doing all the testing. It's freaking insane how they do it.
And the cool part about all that additive manufacturing is you bake in mechanical properties that you want.
Yep.
And you can bake in basically whatever you want. Complicated shapes, welds on the inside of things that should, how would you weld that in this shape or in this way? But it's been
they made
basically 3D printed.
Yeah, they made a prop for this massive ship that was going to take like 5 years for them to, I can't remember the time frame.
To machine or make cast or something.
Out my ass, but to be able to cast it and machine it back down. And they were able to just build it. They got 2 robots and it's on a rotator and it's just, welding this thing out, and it's completely made out of weld metal. And when they get done, they pop it off, they send it to the machine shop, it machines it down exactly where it needs to be, and then, hook it up to the boat and get back in the ocean.
I'm trying to get him to make me a stick for my excavator. Like a 3D printed stick. I've seen a couple 3D printed excavator parts.
Yeah, they've got one up at Lincoln. The arm of the excavator, all the hydraulic lines run internal inside of the arm.
Yeah, that's what I want them to do.
That's pretty dope.
I want to redo mine so that we can do mine that way. I don't know. That would be a really cool video project. This is the kind of stuff that I really want to do with them, and I'm hoping that they'll let me. But these are the questions that I'm asking. It's like, hey, what if we did a 3D printed excavator and we shot and we shot a whole video about this? Like, this is stuff that you only get to see, like you said, at this conference or hear about if you're kind of just in the know. But man, can you imagine being a 12 or 13-year-old kid with a 3D printer in your bedroom, that you built yourself, and you're like a nerd in science class or whatever, and you see 3D printed ship parts and excavator parts like in a video on YouTube or at a career fair or something like that. I mean, that could change. Like, that's the kid that we need to attract to this stuff. So I love seeing this technology like kind of come into play.
Yeah, and it's pretty damn fascinating. I mean, all this stuff that's actually coming out in our time, it's really cool to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's welding so new. There's going to be some wild stuff that comes out in our lifetime. And that's the problem I have with a lot of welding schools teaching people the way that you're supposed to be preparing welders for the future, not for the past. So like whatever you did in your career is long since gone. Especially, I mean, there's a lot of things that carry over, but there's so many things that, be cool to expose younger welders to, this new technology, some of this new stuff. I mean, just so they know about it. Yeah, because I mean, if you don't go to FabTech and you don't listen to the podcast or whatever, like you'd be in the dark on this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where social media helps out. It kind of exposes younger people to different trades, different things that are out there, all kinds of new stuff. I mean, you can watch YouTube, you can see something on Instagram and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then just pop over to YouTube and like, there's just thousands of videos on that exact subject. And you can just start learning it right there. That's the cool thing about the day and age that we live in. And I think teaching welding is going to start happening a lot faster.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, that's...
You'll take a year-long program and just shrink it.
Yeah. I mean, this may be controversial, but it's like, I think that, back to those, like right back to where we started, it's like, I want to teach people what the knobs do, how to check your work, and how to document your settings. If you know how to do those 3 things, It doesn't matter what process you're running. It doesn't matter what position you're welding. Doesn't matter the material thickness, type of welder you're using. If you know those three things, you are now in a perpetual loop of being able to check your own work and be able to make procedure development decisions all on your own. So, if you have a weld shop that welds two procedures, which you should, if you are welding things, especially the same material thicknesses over and over again, regardless of the shape, but joint design, joint configuration, material thickness, and type. If you're welding the same thing, even if you weld a million different types of things, you should definitely have procedures, because that way, all you need to do is just train someone how to weld to that procedure. They don't need to know how to stick, 60-10 if you weld stainless steel. They don't need to know how to do that. Why do they need to know the history of welding when you need someone that can run 035, 308 LSI at, 275 inches a minute to 315 inches a minute and between 19 and 22 volts? Because that's what you build. You build these parts, and that's the seat that you need to fill. And that person that comes into that only may have 3 days of welding experience can build an entire career on that foundation without having to go to a year-long welding program. They might get to the point where they're like, man, I really want to learn how to use cobots. So I'm going to go take a cobot class for 10 days and come back and be dangerous with a cobot. And then now you can move into this other position or whatever.
Yeah, you can start marrying the two together.
Yeah, I think that these specialty classes, these shorter continuing education courses, both for instructors, I think number one, high school, community college instructors, community, like we've talked about this so many times, like that you go to classes all the time and you learn stuff every single time you go to a class. And I feel the same way because I attend classes all the time too. And there's not a huge opportunity or a lot of folks out there that are educators that are taking advantage of that, whether their school doesn't give them the budget to do it, they don't have the time, or they just don't have something that's available in their area.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to fix that, I think, is a huge thing. Being able to help, with this continuing education, I think is going to be, man, I think, I'm so excited you have a school. I've been doing classes and stuff all over the country. I think I'm going to continue to do that and, put together some things where I come out to your school and we collab on a class for whatever, a few nights or a few days or something, and just kind of keep, pushing this along.
Yeah, that was another idea that popped in my head a couple days ago. I was sitting there thinking about it. I was like, with all these different people getting into welding education as instructors, a lot of them know how to weld, but they don't know how to teach, or they don't know a lot of the theory. Like you said, once you understand what all the knobs, buttons, and dials do, like you're pretty dangerous at that point. Like you know enough to be dangerous. So that's another thing that I want to kind of open up at the school. Like if you need to come down and do like a refresher course, or some instructors, they're limited to only one or two processes. I know a lot of guys that ran stick and MIG and have no idea how to TIG weld. Well, if you got to teach that, I want to set up a class to where an educator can come in and we can train them up during 1 week or 2 week session and teach them a different process, proficient enough to where they can go back and teach the students.
Yeah, there's no, I think that there's no shame in any of this stuff.
No.
I mean, I'm constantly, every single day, presented with things that I don't know the answer to. Things, joints, materials, things like that I've never seen or never welded before. But you just work the problem, and I think that, if instructors are willing to kind of take the guard down a little bit and be like, man, I should take a class. But again, there's not necessarily a lot of opportunities for people for continuing education which is why you're creating one. Mm-hmm. And which is why I think a lot of these welding schools, like the Precision Welding Academies, America, the one that
American Welding Labs,
and then Arc Labs, the one that Sean Flotman works at as well. What is that? American Welding Academy? Yeah. I mean, Western Welding Academy. There's there's tons of these places all that are starting to pop up, and we're starting to see more and more of these smaller and independent schools. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head. of where I think that the industry is headed is more towards these shorter specialty classes, train the trainer type events. And I think that's gonna be the next wave of advancement. Social media was huge because we were able to network and see what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've been in the game a long time. I mean, no one was doing weld weaves the way that they do them now.
Hell no.
And now everybody's laying dimes and weaving and doing all sorts of stuff. But, without social media, it was really hard for that.
It wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been possible. But I think the next level up in the industry is going to be, on this technology and education side, where people are going to start capitalizing on the fact that there's a school nearby. They're offering a 3-night or a 10-day, lower cost of entry, more focused on a specific process or specific thing that they want to learn, and then bringing in industry experts, whether it's, somebody who does this process continuously all the time that can be a good instructor or can co-teach a class with you. I think that's great. I'm so excited to see that. And I'm really glad to kind of be in a position where I can jump in and help, and jump in and do, co-teach a class, with you or, any of these other schools.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I can't wait. So we should be July 17th will be the first class. And then after that, I'd have to look at the calendar, but I mean, I'm sure there's weeks in there that we could line something up and do a collab. So I think I've got one week class per month up until December.
Okay.
And then it works around my travel schedule because I'm doing the inspection conference with AWS. I'm going to do the Weld Summit. FabTech's coming up. I'm going to be at the automation conference.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm trying to set all those dates kind of around, or the school schedule around those dates and everything. So I'm not traveling and offering a class the same week,
Yeah.
So I got my schedule for the rest of the year, and I was like, okay, here's when I can offer different classes and stuff. So we kind of built it around that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much booked for the rest of the year. I've exhausted all my vacation time and travel, getting all these schools taken care of before the end of the school year, which is basically June, July.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna just be kind of trying to take it somewhat easy for the rest of the year. I still got FabTech to go to, and I might have a project I'm working on in New York at some point, and then I think that's really about it for this year. I'm going to try and stay off of an airplane for a little while.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'm actually flying up to Jersey next week to go pick up all the equipment and stuff. Speaking of FabTech, next year it's going to be in Orlando.
I know. I saw that.
30 minutes away from my school.
We should definitely, we need to plan that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, shop night.
Come in a little bit early. Yeah, we'll plan. I want to plan a couple things out.
Yeah, I think that'd be really fun.
That'd be dope.
I had a great time when I came down there and got a chance to hang out with you. It was a weird week for you because you were right in the middle of the transition. I think we got a chance to go out one night or something. But no, it was super fun. Yeah, we did the podcast in where you are right now. We were the first ones.
You're the first ones.
Minus AC.
And now I've got AC in here. I got a split system. I got a mini split, so it's a cool 74 degrees in here right now.
Oh, nice.
It is nice.
It was 174 degrees.
Yeah, it was. It's can we turn the AC off? It's kind of loud. I was like, okay, we'll put the fan on. And then Jesse was like, no, turn the fan off.
Oh, well, yeah, it was
bacon.
Rough. Yeah, but we had great audio, though.
The audio was good. Audio was good.
Audio was good. That's Jesse for you, though. He's the audio's got to be good.
Yeah. I mean, especially on a podcast. I mean, you want the audio to be good. Bad audio is hard to listen to. It's easier to watch bad video.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, that's why when I was gonna just call you, because I have Zoom on my phone and stuff, and I'm like, anytime I do a podcast, I literally bought the Shure mic and headphones and set myself up so that way, because I do so many, whether it's just presentations or podcasts or something like that, I'm like, I gotta have this stuff set up. I turned my computer on, and it's like, oh, you have a software update, and I'm like, I better get this out of the way now before the podcast. And this was 10 minutes before it was supposed to be on. And it's it restarted 4 times. And I was texting you. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm sorry. But it's worth the good audio.
Yeah. And I get those notifications all the time. I'll come out here to get ready for, a podcast, and I'll fire everything up. And it's update. Remind me tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not doing
I just
that
worry that it's going to like pop up in the middle. It's like, no, you have to do it right now.
Oh yeah, I haven't run into that one yet.
I don't think so. Yeah, I worry about that. I'm
Zoom
like,
does the same thing. Like it'll pop up and be like, "Oh, upgrade to the new." And yeah, I'll do that after the show.
I'll do that later. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Trying to think what else there is to update you on. I don't even know.
You doing anything big at FabTech this year?
Nah.
In Chicago? You just going up there to hang out?
Yeah, I'm going with Central. I usually just go. I typically go on behalf of Central like every year. I don't really have anything. I don't have anything planned. We have a lot of our customers that go. So I try and link up with our customers, and we'll go meet vendors or go look at certain products and stuff. So I try and tee all that stuff up, from now until FabTech, find out who's going to be going, make sure I meet up with them and just kind of get them connected with, the people behind the products, whatever it might be, plasma cutters or tables or who knows, whatever that might be. So yeah, just getting all my travel stuff sorted out. And yeah, I would love to do something at FabTech. I just don't know what I would do. It's pretty hectic that week anyway. So especially for you. You doing anything? You doing podcasts this year?
Yeah, my dance card's filling up quick. Everybody's starting to reach out now. They're like, "Hey, you going to FabTech?" I was like, I don't know if I want to answer that question, but
depends on how much.
Yeah, Max and I are Max and I are linking up from the Canadian Welding Bureau podcast.
Oh, cool.
So we're gonna have like a room at the convention center to be able to pull guests in and do a podcast, and I want to do video while I'm there and everything. So I've got cameras and everything that I'm going to set up, the little Mevos or whatever,
nice.
So I can catch some stuff for YouTube and stuff like that. We want to do. We're still kind of kicking around the idea, but I want to bring in like guests or whatever, or like not guests, but like spectators, like an audience. Have some chairs set up, and like as I'm sitting there talking with a guest, we'll turn it over to like a Q&A for an audience member, and just have like a stationary mic, right there on the floor, and people, and people can just walk up and ask a question or whatever, and we can get into it.
That's a great idea.
So we're planning. I'm hoping to link up with him probably sometime next week and start really locking in the details for that. And I'm doing Can Weld too, so that'd be cool. It's up in New Brunswick, cool. October 16th to the 19th. It'll be my first time in Canada, so that'd be pretty dope. Nice. I went up to Canada not too long ago. I met Ryan Nyrop. Oh yeah, he's a cool dude, man.
He is the man. That guy is so dialed.
Yeah,
so dialed. Like procedures for everything. Doesn't weld anything not to like. He is like the Iceman of welding.
Yeah, he's good.
He's just got that new, talk about a guy that's been doing things a long time the same way. He's got a new Frontier 400X pipe with a screen on it, and he loves it.
I seen that.
He's like, dude, this thing is sick. I'm like, can confirm. I'm like, I welded with it when I was up in Alaska, had a chance to weld with it, and it's the smoothest stick welding machine I have ever run.
Really?
Well, second to the PowerWave 300C Advanced.
Really?
300C Advanced still runs smoother than that.
Really?
I think. The 300C Advanced is insane. A welder is like a power cleaner, right? Like it's going to clean up that AC power and generate it. The 300C Advanced does that probably better than any machine that I've ever touched. And I would say that thing stick welds better than anything. But I mean, you wouldn't stick weld off a PowerWave. But I mean, this is an engine drive that has, that machine, yeah, it's as smooth as anything you could ever imagine. It's like the arc is just like stationary. It's awesome.
That the Aspect 375s are pretty good for stick welding. I like welding on those better than the 300s.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't stick welded on one of those. I'll have to try it out.
That's all it knows how to do is stick and TIG. So you don't lose anything trying to incorporate different modes of metal transfer with MIG welding or all the advanced processes and shit. It's like, it's dumb. It knows how to stick. It knows how to TIG, and it does both those very well.
I'm gonna have to throw a lead in one of those. I know we have a couple customers that have them. Jake Lear's got a 375 down there.
Yeah, that's. I had one of my students. They're like, "Hey, Mr. Becker, can we stick weld on this S350?" And I was like, "You can, but why would you want to do that? Like, use one of the stick welding machines. It's kind of like you can do it, but I can also haul manure in a Cadillac. So why would I want to do that? That's like an advanced process machine."
Yeah. That was the first thing I ever did with it, actually. Like that's usually my gauge of how a machine runs. I'll run I run 60-10 first. So usually the first thing I'll run on a machine is because 60-10 requires like a pretty high open circuit voltage.
Right.
And especially if you're stepping and you're like, you got that rod just crammed, being able to keep it lit is a huge, and how stable that arc is. That's a big one that I always try out. So I start with that, then I'll run a 60-10 just to see how a 60, like an 1/8 inch fresh 60-10, like right out of the tin, see how that runs. And then I'll MIG weld with it or whatever. But yeah, that's the first thing I did on my C300. I couldn't even believe, or 300C, I couldn't believe how smooth it was. But I'm gonna have to try this aspect now. I have the little aspect. I don't have the big one. I haven't stick welded off of it, but
yeah, it runs pretty good. That's the one I did the AC pulse stick welding with it.
Oh, that 375.
Yeah, the 375. It's a bad bitch. But I've noticed that cool. Speaking of open circuit voltage, Miller's machines, they have a much higher open circuit voltage than most of the Lincolns. I think they're up around like 50, 60, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I depends on the machine. And it also depends on the mode. I know that they'll change that based on, whatever welding mode that you're in. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like looking at this. I have the Arrow Wave like sitting across from me in the office here, and it has a stick welding mode. And I'm like, I wonder how that would run.
Yeah.
Like an Arrow Wave on stick welding would probably weld pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah. More things to experiment with.
Yeah, now you got to get back to the lab again.
Back to the lab. Yeah, I'm going to be building another lab, the 3.0, for these mobile tours.
Oh, dope.
So I'll have all my kit, I'll be able to kit it up with equipment and then have it, delivered, have the hot shot truck, drive it out or deliver it out to be able to do these classes and stuff. It's something that I've been considering doing for a little while. My mobile lab is really cool and it's great but as a shop, like static, and it's not really configured or set up for transporting like 10 welders in either. So I think that the next move is building the mobile lab like 3.0, basically just like a cargo trailer that I can kit up, that we can send out ahead of time. So like, let's say we wanted to do, an advanced class at your place, like rather than you have to deal with all the red tape of getting power waves and
shipping
hyperfill
and all
wire and all that stuff, I'll kit it up and then we have it shipped out ahead of time. And then we have all the stuff in it. So I just, it gets delivered and then we just open the doors up and, plug it in and away we go.
Plug and play. Hell yeah.
So
pretty dope.
I'm working on kind of sorting that out, figuring out like what I want to do. And it's going to start out with just these smaller 3-day introduction to welding classes that I've been doing in this, like the workforce development type space, because we got to get more people interested in welding. We got to get more people into careers and stuff. And I think that these smaller classes are going to help. But figuring out how to get all that equipment to a place where we can do it and have a safe place where people can weld. There's quite a bit of logistics in that. So figuring out like whether it's an outdoor tent and then you have a United Rentals or, Sunbelt big generator spider box situation probably is going to be the best way to do it. And then you just pack the machine full of all the equipment that, you would need. Shielding gas I can get from Central Welding. We can have cylinders. We could put a gas mixer in it. You could do, all that stuff. So that way you can just box everything up, send it out, do your demo, put everything back in the trailer, have it sent back to the house and get on the airplane and fly home.
Yeah, that'd be the way to do it. Then you're not driving everywhere and, you save a lot of time. You ship it out, 3-4 days before you get on the plane. And then by the time you get there, it's already there waiting for you.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, we got to plan something out, man. Let's keep freaking chatting. We'll figure something out for hopefully do it before the end of the year.
Yeah, we should be able to do something like that. Like, we'll just have to see what our schedules line up. I got FabTech and potentially a thing in New York. But I have a lot of like local central stuff, lots of trips to Seattle, lots of trips to the coast. There's just a ton of that stuff that's going on right now, which is great. I love, when customers are taking advantage of me. So
Careful how
but
you say
yeah,
that.
it's been good,
Yeah.
It's been good. Yeah. I love when people are willing to go down the rabbit hole. I mean, we got customer down in Southern Oregon that's doing, they weld a lot of aluminum widgets, and they want to get away from the push pull guns, and TIG welding, or they want to get away from TIG welding, and they're looking at push pull guns. And, they have my 300C advanced right now with a straight push gun, 10-foot straight push, non-water cooled, Teflon lined, 3/64 5356 or 1/16 5356. They are welding 080 with AC precision pulse on the 300C advanced with 3/64 wire. 080, no distortion.
Nice.
Like, they're like, wait a minute, we don't have to TIG weld this stuff? And they're like, no, you don't have to TIG weld it. So we got one of Lincoln's field trainers that trains people on the Power Wave. This guy can not only weld, this is all he does is just run the Power Wave and go make it work for customers. He's coming out with me next Friday or Friday next week. And we're going to go in there and we'll show the customer, like, okay, you want to turn this up to 11? We're going to show you.
Kind of like what Padraic does.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. He works for the same group.
Oh, same crew. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. He's
cool.
Those guys are my heroes. Like, they just get to play with Power Waves all day and push the limit of the equipment, and customers standing there with their hands on their hips are like, this isn't going to work. And they're like, just flip your hood down and watch.
Watch this. Yeah. Let me show you pulse on pulse. You can make like TIG.
Oh, one more thing. I got to ask you about this. Have you run a new 3350 ADV yet?
No, not yet. So I was trying to link up with Patty. I thought I was going to be down at the Instructors Institute this year, and he was going to bring one down, but it's not going to work out.
Dude, I was like, my history with Speed Glass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Speed Glass. I was part of the R&D team for the G502. Absolutely love their product. Still wear it to this day. But, given that I work with Lincoln and stuff, like when we're in the videos, like I've been rocking a 3350. It's a great hood. I love the grind mode, the headgear, super comfortable. They just sent me that 3350 ADV like last week, and I had a chance to run it the other day, and I was like, it's crazy good. The clarity is nuts. It is so like accurate, like it's the color, temperature, whatever it is, whatever they did to refresh that thing. Like, I'm not getting paid to say this. Like I said, I love the G502. I still think that's the best hood on the market, but holy smokes, dude. They did a good job.
Now I'm going to have to check one out. I'm going to get a hold of my rep. Like, let me demo one.
You should definitely be demoing one, I would say.
You have to check it out, because Patty was talking about it. He said it's pretty slick.
I was blown away. I was like, I was not expecting.
It's got the light in it too, right?
It does have the light in it, which I used the other day. I was just doing some overhead welding out at the Job Corps out in Astoria with some of their students. They're working on overhead, and they're like, how do you do it? Can I watch you run some? And you're in a booth, it's dark, you're trying to look at that.
Yeah, the light's above your plate.
Yeah, overhead the T-joint. So yeah, you look up and then all you're seeing is the light. So but yeah, man, just hold that second button there for a couple seconds, the light comes on, you got your hood down, you don't have to lift your hood up. It's bright enough that you can see right through your window and be able to see you could see what you're doing. You could chip slag, you can look at the weld. I think that they even lowered the light shade even more. So it's not 3, it's like a 2. It's kind of like the Crystal 2.0 or whatever. The light shade is really, really light.
Yeah. I think Optrel.
Optrel, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Another great hood. But yeah, that light shade was it's pretty impressive. I was like, wow, it's like not wearing any hood at all.
Yeah, it's pretty. I want to check it out now.
You should. Yeah. Sorry, Lincoln. I didn't mean to give away another hood, but if anybody needs to check one out, it's Jason. Yeah.
Yeah. Send me one.
Yeah.
Have your people call my people.
Yeah. Reach out.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I don't know. I think I'm out of things to talk about unless you got any other questions.
No, I think that works, man. Let's plan something for the school, though. I think that'd be super dope.
Yeah, I would love to. And yeah, we'll figure something out and figure out what we want to teach people. What do we want to show people, and what's the audience look like? And yeah, I think that'd be cool. We'll have this conversation yeah, like as we we'll find the time first, and then we'll plan what we're going to do.
There we go. Or we can just shoot back and forth with text or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, cool, man.
Heck yeah, man. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. No, dude, thanks for coming out again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I got to get
Anytime,
some
dude.
Weld Science stickers.
Yeah, I need to make, I'm working on some
do like
stuff.
the retro 80s logo like you got there on your shirt.
Yeah, I only made one of these shirts.
Well,
But yes,
just take
I'm
that
definitely,
design and send it over to like Rockin' Stickers or Sticker Mule and just get a bunch of them made.
I know, I really need to do that. I actually have a whole ton of like Weld Science designs and stuff like that. And I have the back end stuff done on my website. My brother just needs to finish my website. Alex, please finish my website. But I mean, I have like the Shopify stuff set up. Like I have all these graphics already all sorted out. Like for all I mean, I just need to do it.
Yeah. Get it done, man. Yeah, I know the time. I got to link my Shopify up with local taxes and all that.
Oh yeah, it's just such a
pain in the ass.
It is. Well,
cool, man. Yeah, I know everybody knows where the hell to find you, but just in case they don't, where can they find you online?
Sure. Yeah. Instagram at Weld Scientist and on YouTube at Weld Scientist. If you can't find me on YouTube, just look up Weld Science episode 001. And then you can basically watch all the episodes from there. We have all the stuff that I did with Rush for the Weld Labs tour on there, all the AWS videos on becoming a CWI, CWS, CWE are on there as well. And I've been just trying to build out that YouTube channel. So smash like and subscribe, I guess.
There you go, man.
Cool, man. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Nate and I. It's always a blast catching up with him. Before we get out of here, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And be sure to leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. It helps other welders find the show. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there. And until next time, make every weld better than your last.